Welcome, welcome. I'm Jeannie Rosner. I am the founder of Soul Food Salon, and I'm so excited that you're here to share this day with us. I know that right now is a really, really trying time, and finding joy and humor is pretty much what we all need right now. So I think that this topic with David is going to be amazing. So a little bit about me. I'm a retired anesthesiologist, and I started Soul Food Salon in 2014. My mission and our mission is to educate and empower us all to be healthier. We hold monthly events featuring different wellness experts. Historically, the events were in person, and then since COVID, since March, we have been doing them virtually. I have a website, soulfoodsalon.com, where everything that we have done in the past is available there. Our past presentations, our past recipes, any written content or digital content that we've put out is there. Real wealth of information. So please check it out. Again, soulfoodsalon.com. I am very active on social media, predominantly Instagram, but some Facebook. And we also have a YouTube channel. Everything is at Soul Food Salon. So follow along. Our hope is to educate and inspire us all to be healthier. So each year, Soul Food Salon partners with a different nonprofit. And this year we are partnered with Off Their Plate, which is a totally 100% volunteer run organization that interestingly was started in March when COVID started by a third-year medical student at Harvard Medical School. So this student, she saw the cafeterias in her hospital were closing, and she saw the restaurants in her area in Boston were suffering. And she married the two so that the healthcare workers in her hospital would be fed through meals that were being prepared at the restaurants. And so she married these two together, the restaurant and the healthcare needs, and kept both of them afloat, kept the healthcare workers fed and the restaurant workers employed. And Off Their Plate now is in 9 major cities, happens to be here in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And so we're partnered with their effort here in the Bay Area. Essentially, $100 donation helps provide 10 meals and provides 3 shift work hours for the restaurant workers. So if you would feel so inclined to make a donation to them, that would be wonderful. You can go on my website, again, soulfoodsalon.com, and on the main page, the About page, there's a little link about who we're partnered with, and then there's a specific link solely for Soul Food Salon for the donations. So if you want to make a donation, use that link. Don't go to their main page and make a donation, please. So far, we have raised over $15,000 for them, which is phenomenal. And one thing, their donations now are not just for the healthcare workers, it's really for the at-need community, which unfortunately we know that there's a huge need right now in the world. So again, please follow Off Their Plate on their social media and go to our website, soulfoodsalon.com, to make a donation. Our next event is in January, and right now it's slated to be Thursday, January 21st. That might change depending upon availability, but the event is our annual Renew, Recharge, Rejuvenate Yoga Salon with Clea Tierney. And normally it's probably one of our most enjoyable salons. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, we're still gonna do the salon, but it's gonna be virtual. So pay attention to your emails. We'll send something out soon about that. So as you know, today's event is a virtual format. I encourage you guys to comment and put questions in the Q&A. We will get to those questions at the end of the event, hopefully all of them if we can, but I'm not going to interrupt David during the salon. So kind of before I introduce David, one thing I wanted to say is, so David and I were on a call actually this morning checking in with each other, and after we had our call, I was listening to a podcast as I was out walking, and I was listening to The Daily. I don't know if any of you listen to it, but it's through the New York Times. And it was interesting at the very beginning of the podcast, they talked about how this time is so trying and everyone's going through difficult times, but yet there's probably some joy and some personal milestones that you've had in your life. And they're encouraging people to contact them and share those moments with them. So you can contact, email, or voicemail them voice message them at thedaily@nytimes.com. But it also had me start thinking, and again, I haven't heard David's talk today, but it just made me aware that we have to pay attention and we have to be aware of what's happening in our world. And you have to maybe take your daily walk and notice the birds in the trees and the leaves changing colors. Notice that there can be some joy. And I think probably the first thing that we have to do to create joy is to notice some of the positives that we have in our life. So that's my segue into introducing David Baum, who happens to be my husband's cousin. So he's my cousin, and he's my close friend, my confidant, my hiking buddy, just my buddy. I love anytime I get to spend with David is a day well spent, and I love to share him with other people. So David has a doctorate in both psychology and divinity. He is an executive and an organizational life coach and a personal life coach. So I know he's helped many of my friends when they've been in transition mode, not sure of where they want to go next with where they want to go in their next path. He's just so insightful and so wise. And I really strongly recommend listening to David's past salons. He's actually presented the most out of all my events. This is his 4th event with us. So he's just extremely wise and witty, and you can learn a ton from him. So today's event is going to be something joyful and humor. And he has assured me that he is going to provide that. So I'm going to mute myself and stop my video, and David's going to take it away.
It's great to be here, and greetings from snowy New Hampshire. This is my 4th salon. I love doing these. I love that it takes me into thinking of new things, and I'm wishing all of you much humor and joy during these holidays. I wanted to start off today with a different way of approaching it, a slightly different approach, because it is, after all, about humor and joy. And so I'm going to start with a magic trick. I know, how many times do we get to start one of these things with a magic trick, something unexpected? So I'm going to show you 3 ropes here. I have a short rope, which we'll refer to as yourself. I have a medium rope, which I'll refer to as the relationships you have with one other person. And I have a long rope, which I'll refer to as kind of the relationships you have with your community. So these are the 3 major relationships that we share. Partially, developing joy and humor, practices of joy and humor in your life, are around taking all 3 of these, looking at them and seeing if you can actually balance all 3 of them. 1, 2, 3 in equal measure. And then when you can do that, what you open up is a much larger possibility for what can occur. This is where the real magic happens. Remembering always that we come back to ourselves, our loved ones, and the larger community in which we sit. I know I can't see you out there applauding and cheering wildly, but I'm sure that you are. So let me tell you about last week as I was writing this talk. I spent about 2 days working on what I thought was the most brilliant brain science case I could on why we are feeling the way we are, how our brains are wired for predictability and habit, and now we're in the crazy soup freaking out and essentially building the case for why humor and joy, why we need humor and joy. It was fantastic. It was really quite good. I read it to my wife. She looked at me as if I had 2 heads and essentially said, do you really need to spend 15 minutes building a brain science case for why we need humor and joy right now in our lives? I mean, don't you think people get it? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Seems kind of obvious to me. As in most things, my wife was correct. And she reminded me that the word humor comes from the same root as human, humus, and humidity, meaning moisture. And when we lose our moisture, we get brittle and we break. During a pandemic, what more context do you need? So I embarked on the salon with a lesson in flexibility and non-attachment, 2 perfect entry points for what I'm about to talk about today. What I can say is this: we are freaking out, or many of us are at least struggling. And a big part of that struggle is how what we used to be able to predict and take for granted, we no longer can. Our unconscious habits, patterns, and personal rituals that help us navigate life and survive are, they're for shit. And this, maybe more than anything, requires a different form of response. Don't believe me? Don't quite understand how habit and pattern affects our lives? Tonight at dinner, if your kids are home or just with your spouse, sit at your dining room table in a different seat. Their seat. Just try that. Then you will firsthand experience what happens when unconscious habit meets unavoidable unpredictability. So with this shortened, obvious case as the backdrop, what is the antidote? It is simultaneously to put back into our lives two key ingredients. One, to create new and different habits to help with predictability and generate joy. The other, conversely, is to put in surprise and the unpredictable, which is the foundation of most forms of humor. Example, a little old Jewish man comes back from the doctor's. His wife says, how are you? He says, not so good. She says, what's wrong? Doctor says, I've got herpes. Herpes? What's that? I don't know. She says, wait, I'll check. She comes back 5 minutes later. She says to her husband, Harry, don't worry. I just checked. It's a disease of the Gentiles. So let's get definitional, because joy and humor are not the same thing. Joy is what you feel when you realize that you are in love, or feel a powerful connection with another living thing, or when you hear music, or witness a beautiful sunrise, or see art, or read something that moves you, or get greeted by your dog after a long day. Humor, on the other hand, is a powerful way we can elicit joy and experience it. Now, not all of humor, of course, does this, but sometimes when everything falls into place just right, we cannot keep from laughing or help from laughing, and it is the joy that we experience. Specifically, however, the problem with overanalyzing humor and its facilitation of joy can best be summed up in a quote by E.B. White, who said, analyzing humor is like dissecting a frog. Few people are interested in it, and in the end, the frog dies. Now, I could literally talk for hours on the research on joy and humor, the different theories and their nuances. I did my first doctorate on the subject. Let's just leave it at this. For purposes of today, let's assume that the rabbit hole of definition between what is joy and what is humor and who said what about what is a dead frog waiting to happen, and instead focus on how do we bring more of it into our lives? In the end, the head stuff doesn't really matter, because if you're desperately crawling through the desert, searching for water, some guy on Zoom describing the sand, it's just not that helpful. And let's assume that most people instinctively know joy and humor have a positive physiological impact. So I'll spare you the laundry list of health benefits, because, well, that too could take a while, and my wife will give me another one of those looks. Here, however, and I can't resist early on, is one study that I do love. Did you know that 1 minute of laughter burns the same number of calories as 10 minutes on a rowing machine? Come on, that's gold. But as I said, this is not about why, this is about how. So I'm going to give you a couple of big ideas to think about and a whole bunch of practices to see if you can fit any of them into your lives. Consider this a pick and choose list. Even doing just a few of these can really help to move you forward. Let's start with big idea number one. Joy is a choice. It is a choice, and is a choice that is purposefully made. Joy is an attitude of the heart and spirit, present inside of us as an untapped reservoir of potential. it's possible to feel joy in difficult times. Joy doesn't need humor to exist, although it does feel better with it. Joy can share its space with many emotions: sadness, shame, anger. Joy undergirds our spirits. It brings to life peace and contentment. Joy requires a connection, and often the connection is with other people, but can also be with pets, creation, creativity, etc. Joy can be a consistent and even constant state. Years ago, I was in India, and I was in a temple that was carved in the inside of a mountain. And it was a magnificent, special place. Only if you've ever been to India to some of these temples can be. And it just went 1,000 steps up into this mountain with room after room after room. And this room, there would be an elephant and it was blessing people. And this room, there would be chanting. And the place was filled with incense. And I remember as I was coming down, I passed a beggar, and he was the most destitute person I'd ever seen in India. Now, if any of you have ever been to India, that's really saying something. He was filthy, matted hair, jaundiced yellow eyes, few teeth in his mouth. He was missing parts of his face, his hands and his feet because he was a leper. He wore a filthy red, tiny little loincloth and had an old carved wooden begging bowl that was sitting on his lap. And as I passed him, and I was trying not to look, but I kind of did, he caught my eyes. And with these bright eyes, these yellow bright eyes, he looked at me and in perfect English, he said to me, "Are you happy? Are you in joy?" And I paused for a second and I thought, and I looked at him and I said, yeah, actually I am. And he turned back to me with a big smile on his face and he said, "Me too." And I think about that guy. I think about him a lot, who had so much less than I did in the material world, but he has chosen a path of joy and happiness, and it is purposeful. Now, joy, I believe, can overcome almost anything and everything in this world if it's allowed, if it's chosen. With joy, there is hope. With joy, hardship offers growth and opportunity. With joy, self-esteem and self-respect are indestructible. The goal is joy, and humor, that we'll also be talking about, is a fast-track vehicle to help us get there. Now, although increasing joy shouldn't feel like work, choosing it really comes in handy. People who were told to listen to music and attempt to feel more joy had a greater boost over a 2-week period than those instructed only to relax as they listened to the same upbeat tunes. It comes down to motivation. You can transform into more of a glass half full type, but you have to believe you can, and then you consciously have to choose it. Big idea number 2. Humor is way more than just joke telling. Years ago, when I was doing workshops in humor, I'd start off in an interesting way. First, I'd ask, how many of you have a sense of humor? Usually 100% of the audience raise their hands. And how many of you get jokes? With this question, about 50% would go up. Now, how many of you can tell a joke? The number would drop to 30%. How many of you are good at remembering jokes? Maybe only 10% would raise their hands. Finally, I'd ask again, how many of you have a sense of humor? At this point, predictably, no one raised their hands. Because people see a sense of humor as being only about joke telling. Humor, particularly as it relates to the outcome of joy, is neither about just telling jokes or even whether people laugh. We laugh for all kinds of reasons, because we're scared or nervous, or the boss told a joke and we had to laugh, or we're being tickled. Instead, when I use the term humor, I am intending a phrase called higher purpose humor, which is, does it bring joy and improve the quality of connection to myself and others? Let me say that again. Higher purpose humor is defined as, does it bring joy and improve the quality of the connection to myself or to others? Now, here, I'm thinking about my friend Maud, who, if she's listening, is saying to herself, yeah, mm, I'm not buying it because I'm not funny. I don't like being the life of a party. I hate being the center of attention, and I'm not good at it. Is there hope for me? Why, yes, Maudie, and yes to anyone else feeling this way. You just have to realize that humor can take a number of different shapes, each separate, each valuable in creating joy and connection. Which takes us to big idea number 3. Know your shape. One of my theories is that humor can be divided into 3 main categories: passive, active, and inventive. Passive, active, and inventive. Think of a continuum. Passive is at one end, inventive at the other, and active sits smack dab in the middle. You can fall anywhere on that line and still be funny and joyful. Now, passive people laugh heartily with others, but generally don't initiate. They are known because they encourage, playing the role of supportive audience. Oh, geez, that's funny. Oh, do that again. They create an environment of humor and joy by being warm and enthusiastic. We've all known someone who everyone said had a phenomenal sense of humor, but whose essential gift was laugh and laugh hard. This style helps maintain and encourage an environment for others to be funny. They set the mood, and their role is an essential one. In the middle of the continuum sits the active style. This style doesn't usually initiate, but if humor and joy start to occur, they will see the opening and jump right in. An active style likes to keep the moment going and will encourage continuation by joining in. Oh, that's great. Here's a good one. That reminds me of a time. And they are also the counterpunchers of the humor world. They respond when something is given to them. I love the story about Abraham Lincoln, who was once giving a speech and someone from the audience shouted out, "Lincoln, you're two-faced." He calmly looked back and said, "If I had 2 faces, do you think I'd use this one?" The final category is the inventive style. This is the one who starts the ball rolling. Inventors are usually known for their quick wit, outrageous style, and willingness to risk. They're instigators, sometimes performers. They see the moment and go after it. They are the starters of the humor process. Now, where you fall on this continuum most of the time and dabble in other areas some of the time says a lot about your approach to humor. However, it's all humor. And some of the most effective, higher purpose humorists I know mainly use the passive style. They encourage and allow humor to work for them, creating joy by supporting the humor and joy of others. I'm thinking now of my friend Laurel. I've never heard her tell a joke or story or initiate any kind of humor-filled moment. But damn, can she laugh. You want her at every gathering. Now stop for a second and think about passive, active, inventive, and which shape you mostly hang in, passive, active, or inventive, and what you could do to potentially stretch into other areas. Big idea number 4. It doesn't just happen. You have to work it. It doesn't just happen, you have to work it. I love what Barbara Fredrickson, major researcher in the field and author of Positivity, says. When you're young, other people orchestrate your enjoyment of life. Your parents keep you entertained, and in college, your friends make sure you're okay. But after that, the scaffolding of having a good day is taken away, and nobody is telling you how to provide that for yourself. The good news is that as we get older, we tend to find ordinary treats just as joy-inducing as extraordinary ones. So says a study by researchers at Dartmouth and University of Pennsylvania. The authors speculate that with age, we're more aware of how fleeting time is, so we're likely to relish everyday bright spots, especially now with COVID. How many of you have found yourself in a conversation about how you were reconfiguring your priorities and seeing the joy in smaller, more essential things like time with your kids, taking walks, being home, taking care of your health, catching up on Netflix, and that's what I mean. Almost everybody I know has had that conversation at some point. Big idea number 5. Make joy and humor your personal research project for 2021. Make joy and humor your personal research project for 2021. I have a practice where every year I undertake a personal research project. I investigate something that I want to learn about and explore. I encourage you to do the same thing and make 2021 the year of joy. Again, Barbara Fredrickson. A key to steering your own happiness is reflecting on the things that make you come alive. For you, do you know what that is? Do you really know? And when was the last time you gave serious consideration to what brings you joy? I'd like you for 2021 to put on your researcher glasses and without attachment and staying flexible, start tracking what brings joy and fun and laughter into your life. Think of the things you did as a child as a starting point and go from there. The important thing is become aware of what it looks like for you, where it shows up, what makes you laugh, and then once you know, repeat, 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 and do your best to bring it to others. So this basically has 4 simple steps to follow. Step number 1, identify it. Identify it. Start tracking every day for 30 days what brought you joy and delight that day. Maybe, if you want, even write it down. Number 2, buy for it. If you love being outdoors and walking like I do, then get perfect clothes and put your money in the great shoes. If skiing does it for you, then get the swag you need. Birding, spend a bunch on the best binoculars you can afford. You get the picture. This is about self-care and motivating yourself for joy. This is not a place to skimp. You have my permission, if it's responsible, you have my permission to spend your money on items that will support your joy and practice, because this is all about mental well-being. 3, make it visible and accessible. When our kids were growing up, my wife, who is an artist and art teacher, wanted creative kids. Did we have 1 pair of scissors in the house? Nope, we had 5. 10 kinds of paints and paper? We literally had hundreds. Boxes, floor to ceiling, shelves filled with stuff. She was convinced that ease of access was the key. Even making one of our most important rooms in our new home as you enter the house, and I wanted it to be my den, was turned into the kids' art room. It was the most precious space in the entire house, the easiest, most accessible, most visible, and she turned it into the kids' art room. Floor to ceiling with supplies and a place the kids love to hang, and even adults loved coming just to make stuff. And this is, by the way, this is a picture of the art room. You could see the floor to ceiling, you could see our old house. This was taken a number of years ago. You could see all the materials in the boxes. My wife is incredibly organized. And that gentleman on the left is a gentleman we hosted to our home for the afternoon, and that's Barack Obama. And when it came time for lunch, and you can see us having lunch, the 3 of us sat in the art room, a place he commented on for how comfortable it made him feel, and that my wife had made what was important to her and the kids the center of our physical lives. I have to say, once again, my wife was completely correct. Our 2 kids are some of the most creative, joyful people I know, and I still consider that room and that place sacred ground. Number 4, design it into your day. I want you to consider making humor and joy a non-negotiable part of your day. In a get stuff done world, it's hard to avoid our efficiency instinct. The answer then is to focus on enjoyable stuff along with the must-dos. Don't just fit joyful activities into your days. Try and fit your days as best as you can around joyful activities. Let me say that again. Don't just fit joyful activities into your days, fit your days around joyful activities. Do you ever hear, for instance, devoted church attendees say, can we reschedule church because something came up? You need to have that church mentality about whatever it is that gives you joy and make that the focus of your day, the center of your day, not something that you squeeze in and is ancillary. Finally, do what you can, not just to bring it into your lives, but see if you can bring it into the lives of others. Next slides, Jeannie. I'm going to show you these wonderful slides of this work that my wife did. This slide, the next one, please. Next one, please. Great. And just hold it there. Every year, my wife, who is a community artist, has been doing these wonderful lantern parades and parades of giant puppets. But you know, parades in a small town or in a big city, you really don't want to doing them during a pandemic. And so she used her creativity, put in her joyful spirit, and then she created with some friends and a group of wonderful women, essentially an installation in our town called Home Sweet Home, which is they all made these beautiful, beautiful objects. And we created a small town in the town park filled with snow where people could come safely and walk around and experience the joy of the holidays without putting themselves at risk. Where there's a will, there's a way. Where the creative is there, we can all come up with opportunities and ideas to do things differently. Now, given that, and in no appreciable order, let me roll out 10 ideas to try. I do want to tell you that one of these ideas is going to be, I'm going to teach you how to do a magic trick. So you want to hang in for that one. Okay, so think of it this way. Joy and humor are a practice. It's not a one-time thing or an idea that you get or don't get. If I get up and do a bunch of exercises and repeat them, over time, my muscles will get stronger. Joy and humor are just like that. The first 3 ideas I'm going to give you, of the next 10, come from my friend, the writer Katrina Kennison, whose books and blog I encourage everyone to check out. Number 1, at the end of every day, write down a few bullets of things that delighted you that day. Do this especially during COVID because it helps prevent the days from running together and keeps you focused on ending each day positively. This is not the year. This is clearly not going to be the year to get everything you want. This is the year to appreciate everything that you have. And writing down your delights and joyful moments every day will help you and will help this whole season from blending into one long time. Number 2, give 4 hugs a day. Safely, in your bubble, please, but 4 hugs a day. Seriously, 4 hugs a day. We are becoming hug atrophied, and it's affecting our internal joy and humor. The great family therapist and one of the great giants in psychology was a woman by the name of Virginia Satir. And she said that she felt that a 5 hug, and I'm giving you a little easier, a 5 hug minimum, what was needed for mental well-being every day. Even if the first thing you do is you start in the morning and you just hug yourself, which is a wonderful practice if you do yoga or anything else. So 4 hugs a day. 3, there's lots of opportunities out there and you can find them anywhere, but get a deck of question cards and use them to stimulate conversations every night at dinner. Part of the problem with COVID is we've never been more together physically and yet have less to say to each other. Let me just say that again. We never have been more together physically and yet have had less to say to each other. And sometimes we need a little support. And these question cards, whether at dinner or opportunities, taking walks with your kids or your spouse, they are training wheels for COVID conversations and good starting points that can bring a lot of joy into your life. 4, commit. Commit. And there's a difference between engagement and commitment, or involvement and commitment. What's the difference between involvement and commitment? Think about breakfast this morning. The chicken's involved, the egg's committed. I want you to be committed to 1 degree of change a day on joy or humor. 1 degree a day. That's it. 1 degree. Over time, like money, it will compound and it will grow. So here's the thing, we are born with what psychologists call our emotional set point. This is our genetic wiring for happiness, joy, and positivity. And that constitutes roughly about 50% of our personality. So when we talk about nurture nature, most people in my world say that they settle more on the nature perspective, or at least that's irrefutable, and it composes about 50% of our mindset. Then our environment, either our past history or the environment that we are currently in which we were formed or currently exist again, makes up about another 20% of our response to life, right? So right away, about 70% of how we go through the world, how joyful we are, how happy we are, how positive we are, how much laughter we have, about 70% of that kind of already is there. And you can work really hard to change that. But I want you to know that what that leaves is 30%. 30% in house money for you to begin trying new things in which to change your outlook and your attitude. It may not seem that much, but in psych terms, 30% is a massive number. And if you could increase 1% a day, at the end of 30 days, your life, guaranteed, promised, will be different. Now, what to focus on in those 30 days? Remember this, when it comes to humor, don't try to be funny. Just try to have fun. Let me say that again. When it comes to humor, don't try to be funny. Just try to have fun. Now, for all kinds of reasons, including the aforementioned dissected frog, trying to be funny is a challenge. But if you focus on having fun every day, just 1% more, you will be more funny and you will feel more joy. Or try to learn something new every day for 30 days as your 1%. Start small and trust that momentum will build. 5, just connect. As the writer E.M. Forster said, just connect. Truly joyful people have one thing in common. They have plenty of good social relationships. These include interactions that psychologists refer to as social snacking. I love that, social snacking. It's like little ways of connecting with other human beings, including strangers. Nicholas Epley studied 2 kinds of commuters, 2 kinds, non-talkers and others, whether those others were either introverted or extroverted, but they were talkers. Now, the chatty commuters, that's the introverts and the extroverts alike, didn't matter that they were just chatty, when they got on a train or they got on a bus, reported, if they just started talking to other people, they reported the most wonderful commutes. Regardless of the type of person they connected with, they consistently felt more joyful on days when they connected and chatted away. Yes, camaraderie is comforting because that gives us the feeling we're all in this together. We connect on the common ground, and sometimes there's even magic that occurs when we have our lives opened in new and surprising ways, which would not happen unless you connected. Number 6, be nice. Be nice. Research shows repeatedly that if you do a few good gestures a week, maybe 3 to 5, a few good gestures a week, you feel happier and you're more joyful. This does not need to be a grand gesture. It doesn't need to be massive. Could fit into your 1%. At the store, let someone in front of you. Give a compliment to a stranger. Choose to make your spouse happier 3 times this week. Make your efforts other focused, and as Lin-Manuel Miranda famously penned, talk less, smile more. Number 7, here it comes. Learn a magic trick or a few of them. Learn a magic trick or a few of them. I do magic everywhere I go. It is the greatest way I have ever traveled. It is the great tip that I can for anybody who travels, which is learn 3 or 4 easily reputable magic tricks, and you will be fabulous. You will connect in. You will bring so much joy into your life and the lives of others. And I have done magic in the Mara of Kenya. I have done it in the ashrams of India. I have done it in speaking no Quechua or Spanish in squares in Peru. But learn a few magic tricks. And a great place to start is to go to Tannins. Tannins, T-A-N-N-E-N-S. Tannins in New York. And it's a great place to check it out. But I wouldn't want to let you off today without teaching you this magic trick. So here's one that you can try, and you could try it this evening at the dining room table or with some friends or on a Zoom call, however you want. It's a pretty good one. And it's a mental trick, so you don't need any props, you don't know how to do any sleights of hand, nothing like that. So I'm going to do the trick first, then I'm going to teach you how to do it. So here it is. First, I want you to pick a number between 1 and 10. Pick a number between 1 and 10. Okay? Everyone got a number? All right. Now, whatever that number is between 1 and 10, I want you to multiply it by 9. Multiply it by 9. Pick a number between 1 and 10 and multiply it by 9 to get at another number. If it's a double-digit number, add the 2 digits together, whatever the number is, to arrive at another number. If it's a single-digit number, just take that number. Okay, so now we all have a single-digit number. Number between 1 and 10, multiplied by 9, add the 2 digits together, or just have that number. Now, take that number, whatever it is, and subtract 5 to arrive at another number. Now, once you have that number, what I want you to do is to find, and I hope you're still with me, the corollary letter in the alphabet. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. All right, so now you're at a letter in the alphabet, hopefully. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to think of a country, English pronunciation, that starts with that letter. Okay, got a country in mind, English pronunciation. Take the second letter in that country's spelling, second letter, and think of an animal, a large animal that starts with that letter. Now, think of the color of that animal. So you've got a country, you've got an animal, and you've got a color. Moral of the story, there are no gray elephants in Denmark. I hope I got that for most of you. All right, so let me teach you how to do that if you want to learn it. So the magic of this is that it is a force, and a force is where you think in magic you have free choice, but you really don't have as much choice as you feel. So any number between 1 and 10, when multiplied by 9, when the two digits are added together, will give you the number 9. Unless, of course, you picked 1, which you would still end up at 9. So we all should hopefully be at the number 9. Then we subtract 5, and then hopefully we're all at the number 4. Then notice what I do. I say, now find the corollary letter in the alphabet. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and that's kind of a trailer. And you're going, ooh, even if you're terrible like me, I don't do public math. Ooh, D is 4. D is 4. Then I ask you, think of a country, English pronunciation, that starts with that letter. Most people, not everybody, but most people are going to pick what? Denmark. Take the second letter in the country spelling, think of an animal, then I do a little throw in there. Large animal, where do most people go? They go to an elephant. And what color is an elephant? An elephant is gray. And thus, no gray elephants in Denmark. It's great, it works all the time with lots of people, and it's fun to try it. Number 8, plan for the future. Plan for the future. Today, the days and weeks, especially this winter for us all, will run together. It's Bland's Day all over again. You know that scene from The Godfather, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday. You have to interrupt this cycle. Make your Sunday the day you plan and fun for the next weekend. So one idea is to think about Sunday as the day you plan for the next coming weekend. Now, good idea about how to plan is to think PEP, P-E-P, physical, escape, people. Physical, escape, people. That is, in other words, a mix of physical activities that will energize you, escapist activities that will relax you, and time spent safely with people in your bubble who will make you laugh or bring you joy. This will help you both in the moment to bring more joy and fun into your weekends, but also it will help in the sweetness of the anticipation of what's coming of the next weekend. Number 9, argue in another voice. My friend David Knudsen owns an island in the heart of the North Canadian wilderness. Many years ago, he and his former wife decided to spend the winter on their island, a place they usually only summered. They thought it would be interesting and educational for their 2 small sons. Romantic, maybe. Problematic? Definitely. I mean, picture yourself for 4 months in a cabin no bigger than the average living room, surrounded by 10 feet of snow. No phones, no TVs, no electricity, no running water, no internet, just you, your family, and only the variety of different ways you can create to entertain yourselves. Now, under ordinary circumstances, an argument or a fight can be difficult and maybe even disastrous. But my friends came up with a brilliant solution. Every time they fought, they did so no holds barred. You were allowed to say anything and just get it out with the following rule. They had to speak in a Donald Duck voice, kids included. Whatever they were upset about was croaked out just like Donald Duck, just quacked out their grievances. The result, no argument lasted over 10 minutes without them bursting into laughter. This is the most perfect practice, I think, for pandemic living. And finally, lastly, write a hope note and leave it for people to anonymously find. Write a hope note and leave it for people to anonymously find. Years ago, and when my daughter, she was just out of college, and now she is gorgeous and a 34-year-old fabulous teacher at a school in New York and doing wonderful work at the Horace Mann School. Anyway, Kate was feeling a little depressed and blue. She just didn't know what to do. And she was a great outdoorist. She loved the outdoors. And I decided the way, you know, dads do, and in fact, I'm a stepdad, dads do, is that I was gonna just pull every lever I could and create the most inspiring weekend for her. And so I put together a weekend in New York City. And, you know, she was about 23, 24. She'd never been in New York, lived in New Hampshire, just never gotten down there. She's tended to spend most of her time in the woods. And so we drove down to New York. And the first night we were there, we went to this massive gala, and she sat next to these really famous people. And we went to a gala on women adventures called the Wings Conference. And she was quiet and she was watching. And the next day, she went to a small luncheon. And at the luncheon, she was actually able to sit with all of these 10 famous women adventurers and be with some older, very famous New York socialites. And Kate just got really quiet. And she's normally kind of quiet. That afternoon, I took her to MoMA and we walked around and I said, oh, look, see that painting? See who donated that? You had lunch with them. See that painting? You had lunch with them. And Kate got quieter and quieter. Then that night, I had arranged an evening at a friend who was one of the founders of the Moth. And we went to hear his one-man performance, which was about his marriage and the breakup and relationships. And afterwards, he met with us and we talked, and Kate got quieter and quieter. Then the next day, I took her to an art opening of a friend of mine who is a brilliant, well-known photographer who was in her 70s at the time. And she had done a series of photographs of her naked with just masking tape, various parts covering the essential parts. And Kate got quieter and quieter and quieter and just about disappeared. And I have to tell you, I was pissed. I mean, I had pulled all these levers, all these strings, all these relationships, all these things that we were going to do, including, by the way, that night we were going to meeting Jane Goodall, someone I work with, Jane Goodall, for a drink. And Kate just disappeared. And I felt so incredibly unappreciated. So we're having lunch and we were going to go out and I was going to plan a whole shopping thing and this in Soho and other events that we were going to do. And I was kind of fuming and there was only one bathroom and Kate had gone in and then I went in and I walked in the bathroom and there on the mirror was a Post-it note. And on the Post-it note, it said, "You are loved." And I looked at that note and I thought, ugh, what a schmuck I am. Kate doesn't need me to do anything for her. She just needs me to love her and to support her and just be present with her. She doesn't need me to fix anything for her. And so I came out of there and I said, hey, how about this? How about we just cancel today? We're gonna go have drinks with Jane, of course. But rest of the day, let's just walk back uptown about 4 or 5 miles, just hang out with each other. And we don't need to do anything. Let's just have fun. And the look of relief was just palpable. She took a big sigh, said, oh, that'd be great. And she grabbed my arm and we started walking uptown. Well, as we were walking, I said, you know, I just had the most amazing thing that really changed my perspective. I walked into the bathroom and there someone had put anonymously a Post-it note on the mirror and it said, you were loved. And it really changed my point of view. And I'm sorry for trying to fix you. And she just had this wicked smile on her face. And I said, what is it? And then she reaches her pocket and pulled out a stack of Post-it notes. And they all said the same thing on them. You are loved. And what she had done was to make herself feel better during this difficult transition in her life. She was going around putting these Post-it notes everywhere as a way to anonymously bring joy into other people's life. It was her practice of humor and joy to combat her depression and her frustration. Now, she didn't know when she went into that bathroom and put that note on the bathroom wall that I was going to find it. And when I went in, I didn't know that she had put it up there. But that was a perfect story about the impact of anonymously doing wonderful things to others, of putting those notes and leaving them for others to find. So we're just about up at the time. I hope you found some of these ideas interesting. In conclusion, before we have time for a few questions, I leave you with this quote from a favorite writer, Annie Lamott. She says, joy is the best makeup. Joy and good lighting. Thank you.
Fabulous as always, Mr. David. So fabulous. So one of the things you said, which I love, and you've shared this before, is at the end of the day, do your gratitude journal or ask those couple questions. And I think that was the first salon that you did in March or maybe April.
Yep.
And the 3 questions that you pointed out, which I answer every day in a journal, are what brought you joy or fun for the day, what brought you peace, and what or who inspired you. And I do that every day. I have numerous journals now that I've put together since COVID, and every day at the end of my day, I kind of jot down what I've done for the day, perhaps 2 to 3 things that I'm grateful for, and then I answer those questions. And I wrote a post in September that I put out, and I said, some days I have problems answering those questions, honestly, because as you said, like, it is Groundhog's Day. Every day runs into itself, but it's really important to see the good in our lives and to appreciate it and to notice it. So I think that's a really great point. One thing that struck me, do you find that looking and doing joyful activities a little bit indulgent? Like, I feel like there's so much badness happening, like, to try to find joy right now in that. I mean, I know we need to for our own mental health, but sometimes I don't know, the word indulgent is there for me. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll frame it this way. I think we live in a world of accelerating difficulty and polarization. I mindful of a quote by Rabbi Zalman Schachter, who said, there's more good than evil in the world, but not by much. So one way to think about humor and joy is that it is a way to interrupt the struggles that we all face. It is a response, a very human response. It is a response to depression, it is a response to fear, it is a response to anxiety, not just for us, but for everyone that comes in contact with us. So emotions, we spend a lot of time talking about the virus, but one of the things that is important to know about emotions is that they are viral. Emotions can be transmitted to others. We pick up on that. So we can choose to think of it as indulgent. And I think that's fair. And there are times when, we can say, oh, I have so much and how should I be feeling this way? Whatever that is. Another way we can think about it is I am a warrior against depression. I am a warrior against insufficiency. I am a warrior against fear. I am a warrior against all of the challenges that we are facing in our lives. And one of the ways that I fight against that for myself and for others is by bringing joy and humor into the world. That's how I look at it. Whether you're talking to someone, I literally had this experience this morning. I was calling someone about a customer service complaint. And I was really pissed off before I got on the phone. And I reminded myself not to be. And I started being very lovely and chatty and laughed with the person. And I got everything that I wanted and more. And the woman said to me at the end, thank you. I hear nothing but grief and aggravation every day. You brought joy and happiness into my life. I so appreciate you. So I don't consider that to be indulgent. I consider that my way to be a human being and to my primary skill I have for helping others.
Great. There was a question, will this be recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. I will upload it to my YouTube channel, which is at Soul Food Salon, probably by tomorrow. And you can, I will also send out an email with the salon link. If you're on our Soulful Insights email list, you will be getting that email, or you can email me, Jeannie, Jeanne, at soulfoodsalon.com, and just make sure that you're on my list. So yes, it is being recorded. Here's a question from someone that said that she's struck by your saying that we should fill our day with joy and fit other things around it. But
Yeah.
that's really hard to do sometimes, especially when you've got to cart your kid to this task or go get groceries and go make dinner. You know, how do you, it's easy to say, but yet it's really hard to do sometimes. So is it more mind shift change? Is it?
Well, listen, I know that it's a simple thing to say, but I'll just give a perspective on that. The secret is the secret is in how we go through our day, maybe not what we do for people that are really busy. So let's say you have to cart your kids to school. Well, how do you do that? Do you get in the car and consciously choose, how can I bring joy into that ride? What can I do to make it really fun? What songs can I put on? Can we sing? Can we have fun? Can I be nice? When I'm out at the store, can I enter and bring a different kind of attitude into the way that I operate? There's all kinds of, I gave a few ideas, but there are literally resources out there if you start to lose hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ideas if you just start to get creative. I work with a wonderful coach myself. So I'm not only just a coach to others, but I have someone who works with me. And I remember a number of years ago, as I was working with him, he asked me to do something. And we work over Skype because he lives in Canada. And we work over Skype, and he asked me to do something. And I thought, I looked at him and I said, Patrick, really? You want me to do that over Skype? And he just very coldly looked at me and he said, well, if you want to make Skype the issue. I was like, oh, God, busted. I don't want you to create excuses and argue for your lack of joy. I want you instead to lean into it and see if you can bring practices in. And remember, only 1% a day, 2% a day, but be committed to doing that. And don't make the pandemic, don't make your life, don't make the hassles the reason. Don't make it your excuse.
Great. Someone asked, will there be maybe show notes or like a list of those top 10 things? So as my head's always spinning for new topics. So maybe David will share that with us, and I can put it out next week as a soulful insight, perhaps, of 10 easy ways, not easy, but 10 suggestions on ways to incorporate joy and humor into your life. And it would be the 10 points that David gave to us.
Yeah. And I would say, in fact, none of them are really hard. In some ways. I'll give you links, I'll put it together, we'll get it to you. Just remember that how you hold something oftentimes is what it becomes. If we hold it as hard, then it becomes hard. If we hold it as joyful and something we want, then it becomes something that we practice, we build that muscle, and we learn to bring more of it into our lives.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Well, I think you've answered everything and brought joy into my life today. I hope you've brought joy into others. We all have that one magic trick to do tonight at dinner. So there's going to be no gray elephants in Denmark coming that way. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Have a joyful day, and be on the lookout for the Salon video, and follow along at Soul Food Salon. Follow David's stuff. David, you want to share your website?
Yes, davidbaum.com.
Baum. That's davidbaum.com. And yeah, so have a great day, everybody, and be well.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.